Are we good? Hello, everybody. Hi. So I am Romina from BDV Solutions, and I'm the head of marketing. And I have Sarah, who probably you guys already are very familiar with Sarah from BDV Solutions. But we have a special guest today, and guest was today our testimonial or Tuesday testimonial, and he's from Nepal, and his name is Senja Maharjan. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, Sajan Maharjan.
Amazing. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we have some people, we have your testimonial, and then we have a lot of people ask us, right? Like, can we hear it from the clients? Can we understand more of their experience, what they go through? So this is what it's about. It's really just a conversation within the three of us and just a talk. And we really want to know about the experience that it was from you. I know you had now the final result, which you have your green card.
Hmm.
Congratulations. We're so happy
Yes,
that you have the green card.
thank
Uh,
you.
but there was some process through that, through getting your green card, right? So that's what we wanted to talk a little bit about it. We have a few people now that join, and we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear the questions that you have. We want to hear what questions you have from Sanjay, Sajan. And basically, I want to just throw a few things out there so you know, and then we will get some questions. But he started his process in July 2020, and he got his green card in August 2024, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we are very happy for him. But let's hear a little bit about what happened throughout those 4 years. And I know COVID happened throughout those 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately.
Yes. So tell us a little bit. Let's just start from the beginning. Like, what made you make the decision to apply for EB3? And were you looking through EB3 for a long time before you made the decision, or did you hear about it and you jump right on, like, just apply? How was that process into making the decision to become a BDV client?
So initially, I came in as a student in 2016. So during those time, I was going through university, and I had friends with me. So during my time for applying, after getting a OPT application approved for the first 1 year process, that's work authorization for us as a student. So during that time, 1 year was very short for me.
Mm.
Like finding a job would take 6 months. It's not like you just get a job right away from the university. So that 6 months time process gave me an option to explore and talk to my friends who have already gone through BDV. So from there, I came to hear about the BDV process, where you could get a green card through an unskilled employment process, where we go through it, and within like 1 year to 18 months. During that time, it was 18 months time period, timeline. That was the thing. And I heard about 18 months, and I said, wow, that's good to get a green card within an 18 months, because if I go through as a student visa, I have to go through H-1B, file in, get lottery selection, again go through it. It's 1 year, then again apply for it. If it's not selected, next year. So I tried for H-1B for 2 years, which then I didn't get selected for. So I was just disappointed, because of that I had to find another university just to keep up with my student visa. So during that time I heard about it from a friend in 2019. So that was the time when he told me about it, he was already enrolled. And he told me about this process, and I was just not sure whether should I go with it or not. Then I did some research about it. I went through the Facebook. Then I immediately contacted the BDV itself, the sales team. So then I got to know more about it. And from there, I was just, okay, why not?
Yeah.
This is worth it. So that's when I decided to go with.
Well, we're happy that you did. And Sarah,
Yes.
how long have you been here? Were you part of? Do you remember his process? Were you here already?
I started in end of 2021, so wouldn't have been at the very beginning of its process, unfortunately. But I think it would have. Yeah, I was at, and so I would have started about a year after you started your process.
Yeah. And Sajan, do you have a community like from Nepal here? Do you have people that ask you about it? Like, what are some of the common questions that you get from people that see you now with the green card?
So I usually am active with the BDV Facebook. So I usually put comment if people have questions during those times because I have been through it. So I like to share. So I just, yeah, if people have unknown questions, I just type and give them answers. But they somehow come back with the into the message, the DM requesting for information. So I
Yeah.
had a lot of talk with community from my place, country, talk to me. I have had many talks with them. A couple of them are friends who have already applied, but they have so many questions about their wife trying to get through it. What are the process? When should we do it? So they ask me about it. So I just give them suggestions based on that, what I have gone through. So I'm not an expert, but I just give
Yeah.
them brief.
No, that's great. We have a lot of people from Nepal that look at, that come to us. So
Mhm.
thank you for maybe you referring people, maybe you telling your friends, but we have a lot of people from Nepal. Um,
Yes.
and speaking of it, so this live is because of that, because so many people from the community and so many people come to us and they ask like, hey, can I talk to him? Can I contact him? Can you share his contact information? So we thought that our live would be good for you guys to have this opportunity to ask questions directly to Sajan. So we have about 50 people here now. Is there any questions you guys want to ask directly? And Sarah, while we're getting these questions, if you want to go ahead and share
Yeah,
any thoughts that you have with them.
totally. Yeah, thank you, Sajan, so much for joining us. And like you said, you had people that had started their process but hadn't, those friends of yours that were part of BDV already hadn't finished their process, right? They were just
Mm.
like in the middle of it. I personally have family and friends in this process as well with BDV. And I know that a lot of them are waiting for those people to like finish and actually get the green card, even though I
Yeah.
work at BDV. They
Mhm.
just think it's too good to be true. So they're like, you do it first, and then we'll see when you get your green card if I'll start my process, which now most like two of them have gotten their green card, and now they could have gotten their green card, 4 years ago when the other friends started their process too. So
Yeah.
it's a matter, I understand it because there's a lot of scams all over the world and a lot
Mhm.
of thing companies that don't do what they say they do, and a lot of people lose a lot of money. So I completely
Mhm.
understand it, especially for an immigration process. But that's why we like to have these testimonials and actually have our, former successful clients talking to our applicants so they can hear firsthand.
Mhm.
And honestly, a lot of our current employees at BDV are former clients as well that have finished their EB3 process, worked with their sponsor, and decided to come and work at BDV to help other people go through the same process that they went through. So it's just nice to have someone that has done it, someone that you can talk to about it, and someone that
Mhm.
can confirm, all the things that BDV says.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see if there's
I have
uh
a question for you, Sarah, a question
mhm.
that came in. So it's about payment, and then maybe you want to talk about payments too. But is the three installment payment applicable for new applicants? Do you want to talk a little bit about the new three installment payments that we have?
Um, yeah, so this would have been different than Sejan's process, but we do have a new payment plan, and it's applicable for new applicants. And our financial team is also offering it to current clients as well. So that just means that you make a first payment when you're ready to start the process, another one when the labor certification gets approved, and then the final one when the priority date is current, and you're ready to file green card and work permit applications. And that's for adjustment of status applicants.
Yeah, and then the next question, thank you. And the next question is about the timing, right? So within the process, how long will you approximately wait before filing your work permit green card?
Yeah, and we can touch on this with oh, hi Collins. I actually know him. I had a phone call with him I think a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so we processing times are going to be different for every person. And Sajan is a good example because he started his process in 2020, and even though he did go through COVID and all the stuff during retrogression and all that stuff, I have clients that started process in 2020 that finished in 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
So
I
even
have
with
my
the same,
friends.
exactly. So people saying, like they're with the retrogression, people think that, people from 2020 that applied then or 2021, because the visa bulletin is showing 2021, they think that no one has been approved since 2021. And then hearing from your testimonial, they're like, okay, he started in 2020 and he's just now getting approved in 2024. It's not true. There's a lot of people that started around the same time as you, and have already gotten green cards, already worked the time with their sponsor, and have already moved on with their lives. A lot of the employees at BDV are testimony to that as well. So every person's going to be different. Every year is going to be different. And even if you get the same sponsor, a lot of people also ask me, like, which sponsor is going to be the fastest? 10 people under the same exact sponsor will have 10 different processing times. So it can be completely different. So, Sajan, if you just want to touch on like some part of your process that may have like elongated we obviously know like COVID made your process take a little bit longer. But anything else in your process that you were like, okay, this definitely affected my processing times, or that my friend who got approved sooner than I did, what was the difference between your process and theirs?
So when I applied through New Jersey. So from that point, and my friends who applied, they applied to California, Texas. So those were the locations. And the people who got approved faster, according to my adjustment. So I see that from California people, they're getting approved faster. And my friend, well, I was surprised too, because he started the process a couple of months after I started. So I was thinking my number should be first.
Yeah.
And when I heard of him getting a green card in 2022, like 2 years ahead of me, and I was so heartbroken when I heard about it. And I was like, what's happening to my case? I used to call BDV, what's happening? Because I thought maybe state-wise it's different where the USCIS office is located, because our document goes to different USCIS offices based on the state. So I thought mine might have some issues associated to the during that time, less employment, people working on the USCIS, and our document not being processed faster. So that's all I felt. That was the only thing. Apart from it, processing timeline, it varied in my case exponentially compared to my friends. But I cope with it because I was always looking back with the BDV bulletin, the EB3 bulletins, visa bulletins. So I was always keeping track with my numbers. When I applied, when is it going to be coming up? So those were the things I was coping with. But it still extended unavoidably. So
yeah. Yeah, and that's a really, really good point to make, is that for this process, that's another thing that I get asked. I get asked, like, when they're picking a sponsor, which sponsor should I go to? Which city should I go to? Or which one will have more approval rates, or which one will be faster? And just like Sajan said, some states go to a specific service center. So there's the National Benefit Center, there's the Texas Service Center, and then there's the Nebraska Service Center. And those all process adjustment of statuses. And so depending on where your sponsor is, it will go to one of these locations. And so when people look to find a sponsor, they're like, okay, the Nebraska Service Center is servicing California, or what, I don't know the exact states I go into them. But as an example, they'll say, okay, right now the Nebraska Service Center is a lot faster, so I'm going to go to the California one. And they're going to move their entire life. And just because at this moment, California or, New York, whatever it is faster, in a year from now, in a year and a half, 2 years from now, when they actually get to that stage of the process, the Texas one can be absolutely faster. And it does change that often. In 1 year to the next, it changes like that. So that's not something that you should look into when you're picking a sponsor, the service center, because it can change. And sometimes it'll just go to the national benefit center, and it's just completely different. So that's a really, really good point to make. And it just depends. I mean, just like you said, even your friends that were processing during COVID as well, they were faster just because of different processings.
I just want to mention 2 comments here very quick. One is to Ronaldo. You asked about the travel ban. Ronaldo, I'll invite you to join us tomorrow at noon Eastern time. We're going to have our president and general counsel, and we're also going to have the former USCIS director, and we're going to do a live. So please join tomorrow, and we will make sure to answer your question in more details with the experts. And then, Sarah, we also have a question. If somebody heard that after they get the green card, they should continue to work for the sponsor for another 6 months. Do you want to address that?
What could you put the question?
Tiago, right there. Tiago.
I don't know that I actually finished this question with Collins. I said, let me put it back up. Hold on one second. I don't think I went back to this. Yeah, processing times, it's going to be impossible to know because it just depends on when your labor certification gets approved, what that visa bulletin is saying. People starting their process right now, the whole labor certification stage in the I-140 is not affected by a visa bulletin. So you got to complete that first. So whatever this visa bulletin this month, next month, the month after that, it doesn't affect anyone starting their process.
Mine took 1 year.
For from LC to I-485?
Before, for LC approval.
For LC approval, yep. So about 12 months right now. I think the average is about 13 to 15 months. So it hasn't gotten a lot longer since you processed your labor certification, but it has gotten a little bit longer. But yeah, so labor certification about 13 to 15 months. And once that gets approved is when you're checking the visa bulletin. It could be that very same month. It could be 8 months later. It could be a year later. It just depends on how many people have applied for this visa category under the visa bulletin when you get to that stage of the process, and how many people USCIS has been able to move forward. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty impossible to estimate just because, I mean, we don't even know what next month's visa bulletin will show, let alone in a year from now. And especially with the current visa bulletin, it's not because we are 4 years backlogged from 2021. It's because of COVID and those people that got stuck processing during COVID, USCIS prioritizing them, and then they'll be able to move forward or jump forward in the visa bulletin once they're able to clear all those out. Because just like you said, people from 2021 have already been approved, have already gotten approved back in the day in 2022. So this one with Tiago, usually lawyers say we should work for 6 more months after receiving the green card. Is that a still recommendation, even if I'm already working with my sponsor for 2 years? So I don't know, Sajan, if you have any input on this from like how long you worked with your sponsor or how long you did, or you waited for your work permit or your green card?
I worked for the 2 years because during those time I did not get any information. I worked the whole year, no information. So I had no choice but to stick with the sponsor because we don't know when we get our USCIS RFE stating where you work, what you're doing right now, what's your current status. So I just didn't want it to take chances. So I still worked there until I got my green card.
Totally. So yeah, your attorney, we always say at least a year because for the EB3 unskilled process, USCIS is looking for only 2 things. That you're eligible for a green card, which is what we check in your questionnaire at the very beginning of your BDV account. And 2, that you have a true intent to help the employer that's sponsoring your green card, which is working for them for at least a year. And so we always say at least a year because that should be the absolute minimum. So if you get your work permit and you work 6 months and then you get your green card, you still should work at least another 6 months to show a true intent. If it's a situation like Sajan, where he worked a year and still hadn't gotten his interview, your attorney will always recommend to continue working for your sponsor until at least you've gotten your interview and you've worked at least a year. Because just like Sajan said, they could send an RFE. And actually, I just got a client that emailed me. He's actually in this stage of the process. He quit working for his sponsor. He got an RFE for his I-485 and is now like asking the sponsor if they can go back to work with them because they want to make sure that USCIS sees that they're working with them. So you don't want to get yourself into a position where you quit work and then you get an RFE or you go to the interview and USCIS officer says, hey, why do you have a work permit? Why are you in an EB3, an employment-based visa category, and you're not working for your sponsor or you already quit? It's not an automatic denial, but it's going to look very, very bad on your case if they know you are legally able to work and you decided not to, or you already quit before showing up to that interview. Because at that interview, what they really want to see is your true intent. They've already checked your eligibility for your green card with the green card application. And what they're looking to see and what they're asking you, and Sajan, you've had your interview, so you can kind of touch on this as well.
I didn't get an interview.
Oh, you didn't have an interview. You were one of the lucky ones.
Nah, unlucky ones, I would say.
Oh, why?
Because I first got my interview schedule for January 2024.
Okay.
So I was expecting that. But what happened was they provided my location for the interview was in New York. I don't live there. I live in Georgia. So now if I come to New York for interview, it would not be feasible because they would not let me enter or they would not process my interview. So they've made me reschedule it. And they gave me a timeline of 3 to 4 years. And my mistake was I was too patient with them. I thought USCIS does the right thing. They made me wait 8 months and sent me another interview notice for August of 14, 2024. And that August was also falsely put onto New Jersey location. And now this time I was not taking chance for reschedule because they took 8 months for that particular framework. And it was such a bad time that waiting for that 8 months for the next interview schedule. And then I went, this time I did not reschedule. I forced myself to go to New Jersey, interview. I entered the office. They let me through because I had a date, even though I'm not from New Jersey. I am in Georgia, but still I went through. And at the end, they said that they do not have my file to take my interview. I live in Georgia, so your file's in Georgia location. Why are you here? That's the question they asked me. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know? You are the USCIS, you have all my documents, you have my address. I even confirmed where is my address in the particular file you have it. They say it's Georgia. Then why are they making this mistake twice? So now I had to confront them. So the next flight I took the next day to the Georgia back home, and I just went into the USCIS office without an appointment because I was already upset because I wasted thousands of dollars just going back, hotels and everything over there, and now I got to go empty-handed. And I just did not go through. And I just went into the USCIS office, asked for the manager for that particular supervisor for that particular office because they won't even let me in. I had to fight my way through it by waiting outside, making sure they see me. I waited there for like 2 hours just to make sure they get my attention. A guard was so helpful that day. That guard saved me, who took my paper and took it to the supervisor. Otherwise, they would never let you in without an appointment because the appointment date is 2 months away. If I go and schedule it right now, they don't have it. And it was such a stressful time. So that time I confronted them. They made me wait another 4 hours till in the office. They did not find my file in the first place. Wow. They say the file is in the office building, but they can't find it. And then I had all my documents for interview prepared with everything on it. I was carrying along with me with medical reports, everything. And they just said, you'll have to come back tomorrow because they can't find it. And the supervisor promised me to get my interview schedule, even though it's not on the book, within that particular week by Wednesday. But they never got back to me on Wednesday. I had to visit Wednesday again.
Oh my goodness.
And they said, where's the appointment? Still, luckily, same officer was there. And he took the papers in and again requested, so I got to go in and talk to the people. And then they say, okay, we still can't find it. We're going to look onto it. They sent me home. And within half an hour after I got home, they called me saying they found the file. Because during that time, I was already waiting too long. So I left my medical reports too with them so that I don't have to come back and make them look onto those documents. So they called me, they found the file. They said, and I told them, do you want me to come in today to give you the medical reports? Because I was there for 4 hours, but you didn't ask for it. So when they found it, they said, come the next morning. There was a different officer. I couldn't go in.
Oh
I
my
had to
God.
wait 2 hours just to give the medical report to the people. And somebody came in the office from somewhere just to grab that particular file from me.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, I have questions. What's going to happen now? you have my medical report. So what's going to happen with the schedule? Because they said it's not going to be official. They're not going to send me the USCIS letter for interview. They're going to schedule it right away with no papers to be printed because it's going to take time. So I didn't know what's going to happen. I didn't get a chance to talk to the supervisor. So it was a hopeless timeline for that particular whole week. So fortunately, they approved it after verifying all the documents. And another mistake that they did was my wife lives in New York. So what they did was the file of my particular wife's document was in Georgia as well. Mm. And now I have to provide them my wife's medical report because I had it in my bag all the time because we were just prepared for everything, whatever comes in. So I had to go back, give it to them, and then within 3 days, they approved my visa.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I don't know what I would rather have, like all that to happen or like to get interviewed by a USCIS officer. I don't know. All that to happen and no interview, or get an interview and not all that to happen. I don't know.
And the officer that I talked to about this particular situation, like I was supposed to get it on January 2024. And when I talked to him, he said, I'll have to wait next year's cycle for my interview. And I was so devastated when he said next year. And then I had to fight with him regarding, he mentioned about our, what do you call it? Green card number that is assigned to an individual every time when the interview is scheduled, correct?
Yeah.
But that person, since I asked him about a couple of questions, why not this and that, he told that my number is available. Because when he started the conversation saying that I'm going to get my interview scheduled for next fiscal year, I was asking him a question, why? Because he was telling me I don't have that particular number generated, the green card number. And I asked him questions about it, and he then comes in after 2 minutes saying, oh, your number is available. So you should be eligible to get a green card interview. And I was like shocked, like within 2 minutes, they changed their words.
Yeah.
And if I didn't ask that particular question, if I didn't knew it, I'd be waiting next year.
Yeah. And that's a good point to make, just for everyone to know, like, there's a lot of things that can happen, and everyone thinks that it's either your fault as an applicant or BDV's fault as a case management company, or even USCIS as a whole. Even USCIS as a whole, it's just like one person, one officer that can make a silly mistake and cause a process to take a lot longer. So
I asked that question to that particular supervisor who takes care of that office building, and she doesn't know herself how is my address being sent to New York, even though my file has the address for Georgia. She doesn't know.
You stole my words, Sarah. That's exactly what I was going to say. But we do have a few minutes, only 2 more minutes. We had a 30-minute live, but I want to just, Sarah, if you can look at Zarin's question. And then on that note, Sajan, a lot of question is, what do you reckon? Like, I know even in your testimonial, you said, well, the most anxious part of the process was the wait, right? So people are asking, like, any recommendation on, like, what do I do when I'm anxious and I'm waiting and I don't know what am I supposed to do? Any tips, any wisdom words there for the people that want to know? The question is, how do I stay calm waiting?
Work. I work full time at my Jimmy John's place that I worked in. That was the only thing, because I just want to forget I have that thing on my head. I want to forget it when it's going to come. Because when I first got the notice and then I had to wait for another 8 months, I just thought of take this memory away from me. Because I was kept on anxiously asking, where is my paper? Where's my paper? So I had to be patient. I had to find other things to do just to get off that particular thing. Get so tired of a day working and do whatever I have to. Just don't remember that thing.
That's great.
No, for sure. That's like when people say, like, don't watch paint dry, because you just sit there and you're just watching it and you're watching it, and it's just going to make you more anxious. And if you just like they just think about it as in the background. I know from experience, I had a 13-year green card process. And so when people say like, 4 to 5 years is so long, I'm like, try to triple that. Try to triple that.
It was not EB3. It was
it was not EB3. It was a my EB3. I did not do EB3. It was a family petition, but it just took so long. And just like you said, I mean, I was young, but my parents were really going through it. So just like you, it's just like working through it and just like keeping it in the background and just doing, what you're supposed to be doing. Or if, especially our F1 students, like if you're just like, I cannot do this anymore, I can't work, I can't like continue paying for school, you always have that backup option of finishing it at home. So you're not paying the cost of living in the US, a tuition. You can go home and pick up from where you left off, and just have your interview in your home country. And so you're not as, you're still going through a process, you're still stressed, but it's not as stressed because you're trying to figure out how to stay in the US. That was one of the questions of like, how do we do it maintaining an F1 status, and how can we afford to do that? You don't have to do that. I mean, you always have, again, the option to go home.
Right.
And so for Zareen's question, I'll just read it since it covers like all of our face.
We have questions here. We're running out of time. I have to be sensitive to Sajan time here, but two things. If we haven't got to your answer to your questions, we are going to go through it and DM you. So we are going to answer your questions, and Sarah's team is going to contact you directly. So please keep posting while we're talking here, just for the next few minutes. But then we will be reaching out to you guys with the answers. And then tomorrow, please, if you still have questions, and there are some like more detailed questions about the process and things like travel ban, is that happening, not happening, is it going to affect my country, we will not, join us tomorrow 12 noon. We have our president, Chris Richardson, and then we have Leon Rodriguez, the former USCIS director. So he's joining for a 1 hour live. So please join us tomorrow, and then we'll try to go through all your questions. But then also, if we don't go through your questions, we will have them and get back to you after the live. But guys, thank you so much. This was fun. It was helpful. I hope it was helpful for everybody else too. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern time.
Yes, thank you, Sajan, so much for joining and trying and also being a part of the Facebook group. I know that a lot of people, when they get their green card, they're like, I'm out of here. I don't want to hear anything about EB3 ever again. So they like leave the Facebook group. And when people are like, I want to hear from someone who's a client, thank you for still being a part of it and trying to help others. I know you'll probably get a lot of DMs now because I get those. So, but just thank you for joining us and telling us about your experience and being a part of BDV's success and your success. And I wish you all the success in the next steps of your life. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Bye.